Your dog is sitting across from you right now, or they were at dinner last night, or breakfast this morning. That same posture, that same stillness, eyes moving between your face and your plate with an attention that feels almost unsettling in how complete it is. You have explained it to yourself already. They want food. They are hoping something drops. They are being opportunistic, the way dogs are. It is the simplest explanation, and it has probably closed the question every time you have thought to ask it. But there is a problem with that explanation, and the problem is where the eyes actually go. If hunger were driving this, the food would be the target, the plate, the fork, the hand moving between the two. Instead, researchers at the University of Helsinki found, using eye-tracking technology on 31 dogs, that when dogs are presented with human faces, they fixate most consistently and most durably on the eye region, not the mouth, not the periphery, but the eyes specifically. That result did not come from a mealtime study. It came from controlled image presentation, which means the pull toward the human face is not situational. It is structural. Your dog is not watching your dinner. It is watching you watch your dinner. That distinction matters more than it first appears, and it points towards something in the research that reframes the entire behavior, a finding about what this gaze represents at a level most owners would never think to examine. We will get there. But to understand it, we have to start with what the stare is not. It is not about hunger. That answer feels sufficient because food is present and dogs want food. The logic seems airtight, but it does not hold when you apply pressure to it. A follow-up study at the University of Helsinki found that dogs could distinguish between human emotional expressions from facial information alone, with behavioral responses that differed measurably depending on whether the face showed positive or negative affect. No contextual cues, no body language, just the face. And wolves, tested under equivalent conditions, did not show the same capacity. The dog sitting across from you has a tool for reading human faces that its closest wild relative does not possess. Hunger does not explain why that tool exists. Something older does. To understand the tool, you have to understand what happens when it activates. In 2015, Miho Nagasawa and colleagues at Azabu University measured oxytocin levels in 30 dog owner pairs during sustained mutual gaze. Oxytocin is the neurochemical your brain produces during moments of genuine bonding, the same molecule released between a parent and a newborn in those first minutes of contact. What the Azabu team found was that when a dog held its owner's gaze and the owner held it back, both of them experienced a measurable rise in oxytocin simultaneously. The dog's levels went up, the owner's levels went up. That elevated state in the owner drove more gaze back, which produced more oxytocin in the dog, which sustained the contact. A self-reinforcing loop across two species. The same interaction was then tested with wolves that had been raised by humans from infancy. The loop did not activate, not weakly, not differently, not at all. This neurochemical response to mutual gaze is not a general mammalian feature. It is specific to the relationship between dogs and humans, and it operates every time your dog holds your eyes across the dinner table. Think about what that means. The mealtime stare is not passive waiting. Every time it holds your gaze and you look back, both nervous systems are responding to each other. The dog is not performing patience while it waits for an opportunity. It is doing something that is physiologically costly and physiologically rewarding at the same time. What it costs the dog and what drives the timing of when it moves closer or stays put is where the research gets more precise. Marianne Heberlein and colleagues at the University of Veterinary Medicine, Vienna, examined whether dogs adjusted their food-seeking behavior based on whether a human could actually see them, whether the person's eyes were open or closed, whether they were facing toward the dog or away. Dogs systematically directed their requests toward humans who were visually attending to them. They were not tracking food location. They were modeling the human's awareness, calculating whether the moment was right based on attentional state, not proximity to the plate. At the dinner table, that calculation is running continuously. The dog is not waiting for food to fall. It is reading whether you are the kind of present that might lead somewhere. And it reads you with a specificity that most owners would find disquieting if they understood it fully. Research by Julianne Kaminsky at the University of Portsmouth established that dogs produce specific facial expressions, brow raises that enlarge the appearance of the eyes, preferentially in the presence of humans, and significantly more when humans are looking at them. The expression was associated with sharply increased adoption rates in shelter environments. It is not a reflex. It is a directed communicative signal produced for a human audience, calibrated to human perception of vulnerability and appeal. The soft, patient eyes across the table are not the neutral face of a waiting animal. They are a produced signal, one that has been refined through thousands of years of contact with people who responded to it. Think about that for a moment. The expression your dog is making right now, that one, the one you have seen 100 times, is something it generates specifically because you are watching. It knows you are watching, and it knows, in whatever sense that word applies, what that expression does to you. Which brings us back to the question of why. Why this behavior in this context, with this consistency, across virtually every domestic dog, regardless of breed or individual training history. Brian Hare at Duke University, in research spanning from 2002 onward, documented that domestic dogs show a specific capacity to follow human, social, and communicative cues, including gaze direction, that wolves do not share, and crucially, that this capacity is present in puppies with minimal human socialization. It is not learned from exposure. It is present before extensive exposure occurs. Hare's conclusion, supported by subsequent work in the field, is that dogs were not trained into social attentiveness. They were selected for it. The individuals most attuned to human signals, including signals around food, attention, and resource sharing, survived and reproduced at higher rates across the millennia of early domestication. Separately, researchers at Uppsala University confirmed that domestic dogs carry multiple copies of the AMY2B gene associated with starch digestion, genetic evidence that dogs co-evolve specifically with human food behavior, not merely with human proximity. They were shaped, at a molecular level, by eating alongside us. The mealtime context is not incidental to the dog's evolutionary history. It is central to it. That's not a scavenger hoping for scraps. That is an animal whose genome carries the record of 15,000 years spent attending to humans in exactly this context. And here is the finding that changes the frame entirely. The one worth holding until everything else was in place to receive it. The social attentiveness your dog directs at you across the dinner table, the face reading, the gaze holding, the calibrated expression, none of it is behavior your dog learned from living with you specifically. Research by Bridget von Holt and colleagues, published in Science Advances in 2017, identified structural genetic variants in domestic dogs located in a region of chromosome 6 associated in humans with Williams-Buren syndrome, a condition characterized by hypersociality and an unusually intense drive towards social engagement with others. Wolves do not carry these variants. Dogs do. The capacity for sustained, socially attuned attention toward humans is not a habit. It is not a trained response. It is written into the dog's genome at a specific chromosomal address. The stare is not something your dog chose. It is something your dog is. That reframes every beat that came before it. The face reading, the oxytocin loop, the attentional modeling, the produced expression, all of it is the behavioral surface of a genetic architecture that was selected for over the entire span of human and dog history. Your dog does not stare at you during meals because it has learned that you sometimes share food. It stares because it is built to attend to you, and mealtimes are when you are stationary, predictable, and continuously present. The patience in that gaze has a history, and the history is longer than any meal, longer than any training session, longer than the life of any individual dog. It reaches back to the first fires that wolves approached in the dark, and it arrives, intact, at your dinner table every single evening. If you want to understand what happens when you finally put the plate down and your dog follows you out of the room, that behavior has its own research, and what it tells you about how your dog experiences your movement through the house